Top of the morning, Dan and Amy, and the Conservative Party in New York has a mayoral candidate. It's not just all about Andrew Yang. His name is Bill Pepitone. He's a former New York City police officer, and he's the nephew of a former Yankee great, Moose Skowron, of course.
Oh.
Obviously, Joe Pepitone.
Joe Pepitone.
He's
who also played for the Cubs in the 70s.
He did, yes. I'm sure he, like most former Cubs, would like to forget that part of his career.
I like Moose
Focus
Skowron.
on the Yankees.
Moose Skowron was a nice guy.
Bill Pepitone is the mayoral candidate's name, and he joins us now. Bill, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Amy. How's everybody doing today?
Good morning. So you retire from the NYPD, and now you want to take up trying to run that city. Why?
Well, because it's my city. It's the city I grew up in. It's the city my family raised me. It's the city I served for 20 years as a New York City police officer. And a city I can't sit back and watch be completely destroyed by politicians who just don't care, who aren't leaders, who don't care about the city and don't care about its people. You know, I reached a breaking point last summer, like many of us did, when I watched the greatest city in the world, some of the most expensive commercial real estate in the world be burned and looted, and leadership do absolutely nothing, just stand by and watch them. I reached a point where I had to do something, and I decided to run for mayor and try to affect some change.
And crime in New York City is up, 54% than it was a year ago?
Crime has skyrocketed. Our shootings have skyrocketed. Homicides have skyrocketed. And it's all because of the weak policies that this mayor has put into place and the lack of support from Albany and our governor.
And also, too, I mean, because we have the same thing here in Chicago, as you well know. It's not just the mayor. It's also the prosecutor, and you've had a problem with the prosecutors in Manhattan, just like we've had one in Cook County.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest problems we have. Besides our political leaders, our district attorneys aren't prosecuting crimes. They're not prosecuting low-level offenses. They're not prosecuting violent crimes. It's a revolving door of justice. We saw during the riots last summer here in New York City, and I'm sure you had the same issues over in Chicago, where police officers were locking people up during the riots, and 3-4 hours later, they were back out throwing bottles and rocks and trying to run police officers over. There's no way a city can survive like that.
I'm still astounded by the statement that de Blasio's wife made a few weeks back, where she said of the violence on the streets of New York City, you know, if you see a fight or if you see somebody being attacked, then, you know, you should intervene. So now the Bernie Gens vigilantism is the order of the day in New York City, according to the mayor's wife.
And the disturbing thing is not just the mayor's wife. We had the Brooklyn Borough president, who's actually a mayoral candidate right now. Last summer, during all the violence, we had a rash of illegal fireworks activities, dangerous fireworks activities. And the Brooklyn Borough president, who is now a mayoral candidate, told his constituents not to call 911 for fear of a heavy-handed police response, instead to confront them themselves. And we had a young woman in Brooklyn who followed her elected official's advice, walked up to somebody who was shooting off illegal fireworks, told them to stop. She was then shot 8 times and killed. This is the leadership we have in New York City right now.
What do you think is the absolute worst thing Bill de Blasio has done?
The worst thing he has done is divide the people of New York City. Last year, during the riots and the violence, instead of coming out strongly and condemning it, instead of standing up for the people of every community, he stood in the streets and spray painted slogans in the middle of the street, as if that was going to end the violence, as if that was going to end the racial problems we have here in the city, and all the tensions that were going on in the city. All it did was exacerbate things and divide people more and more. He's been a divisive, quote unquote, leader from day one, and the faster we get him out of City Hall, the better it will be.
I just looking at this field, there's a lot of candidates, and I love this story about 2 of them, a former Citigroup executive named Ray McGuire and a former HUD secretary, Sean Donovan. They were asked what the, approximately what the median sales price for a home or apartment in Brooklyn is.
What'd they say?
And apparently the 2 of them have not paid attention to what's happened in Brooklyn since Gabe Kaplan was playing Mr. Carter on Welcome Back, Carter. because because they guessed $80,000 to $100,000
What? For a house in Brooklyn?
It's like the median
What?
price is like 900 grand. Of course it is.
Yeah, they're only off by about 800,000.
I mean, how out of
anybody
touch
can
are
make
you
that
for
mistake.
that? No, that's
A Citigroup
unforgivable.
executive, a financial services professional, and a former HUD secretary. Oh, it's wild. I mean, it seems like New York has largely the same problem Chicago does, which is just an unbelievable. The odds are astronomical that you could put together so many bad political leaders in one city or state. That's what we have in Chicago and Illinois. Seems to be what you have largely in New York City and state too.
Without question. And again, I mean, they were only off by $800,000. That's not really that bad. Anybody can make an $800,000 mistake. Yeah, we have quite a cast of characters running for mayor here. Not a leader amongst them, and you know, my city, your city out in Chicago, we have to change things. The only way we can do it is through voting and putting different people, putting leaders instead of these type of politicians in office. We have to make a change. We have to do it now before it's too late.
So the election and all these candidates running around, you know, New York City has had Republican mayors before. Rudy Giuliani obviously comes to mind. And I wonder if, because of the field is so big and it's mostly Democrats and Democrat socialists, the play is as sort of the consensus Republican conservative candidate, you can shoot the gap and get to a runoff and potentially win this thing if it's a one-on-one.
Well, that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping for the primarily Democratic city, our residents here in the city, to reach a point where they're fed up, where they've seen enough crime, where they've seen our education collapse, our education system collapse, our economy collapse under Democratic leadership for the last 7+ years. We're hoping they walk away from the old practice of just voting down party line. We need a change. This city needs a change. And, you know, when you see 4-year-old children being shot in Times Square, if that doesn't open your eyes and make you just look back at your political stance and wonder, you know, what do we have to do different? When you see a child shot in the middle of Times Square in the middle of the day, it's got to change your mind and say we have to do something different.
Do you feel like there is something bubbling below the surface in New York City? I mean, part of the problem is, like in Chicago, is you've just had so many people leave and so many people who know better and want better leave. And so it's this rather ironic situation where I'm just describing Chicago. You tell me if this is consistent with New York, where the worse they make it, the better it gets for them because right-thinking people just pull up stakes and take off.
It is similar. We've had a lot of people who can leave have left. But what we do have is a lot of people who simply can't leave. People with city jobs, people whose wives or husbands work city jobs, children who are in school and they don't want to uproot them. People don't want to leave. People have a genuine love for New York, and I'm sure it's the same in Chicago. They don't want to feel like they're being forced out, and they want to stand and fight. Is there something bubbling underneath the surface? Yes, without question. It's about to come to the surface in this November's election. Again, we have a lot of good people this is their last stand. They're going to fight for their homes, fight for their jobs, fight for their city one last time. And if we don't win, if we don't change the course of New York City, the city's going to be unrecognizable in 2 years.
So if you become mayor, how are you going to draw people back into the city? I saw what Bill de Blasio is doing. You know, come go to a show on Broadway and you'll get a free vaccination shot. Thinking that, or come in for a baseball game and you'll get a free shot.
How about eliminate the city income tax for starters?
Yes. There's a lot of ways we can bring people back, and we could do it quickly and not by offering vaccination shots or baseball tickets. First things first, it's got to be about public safety. Without public safety, we have nothing. We don't have safe streets. We don't have safe subways or transportation. We don't have safe schools. So we have to rebuild the New York City Police Department, rebuild their morale, and start proactive policing once again. We have to open up our businesses, fully open them up, safely, but fully open them up, and start eliminating some of the regulations that are strangling our business owners. Our tax code is crushing businesses in many, many different industries. New York City has not been open for business for quite a long time. We have to open up for business. We have to protect our investors and their investments. And if we do that, we can turn it around and do it quickly.
On the public safety side, I mean, it seems to me perhaps an opportunity is just to run on broken windows. We're bringing broken windows back.
Without question. That's one of the main points of my public safety platform. As a police officer in the 90s here in New York City, I participated in the broken windows approach to policing under Mayor Giuliani, and it worked. It turned the city around. We had previously set records for homicides under Mayor David Dinkins just a couple of years earlier. And when Mayor Giuliani came in and implemented the broken windows policing, where you address low-level offenses that act as a gateway to more violent crimes, it turned the city around. And it brought tourism back. That's what we're severely lacking right now. We're not getting any kind of tourism because people are afraid to come into the city. And when you see 4-year-olds being shot in Times Square, like we had a few days ago, that's another blow to our tourism. Without tourism, our economy tanks and New York City's finished.
Have they caught that guy yet?
I don't believe they have. They know who he is. They have his picture.
Oh, yeah.
Our detectives will find him within hours, I would imagine.
And if you can, before you go, can you just settle this running dispute for us? Does he or does he not? I'm talking about Andrew Cuomo. Wear nipple rings. Is that? I mean, does he? do we know this? I assume this is hotly debated in New York City.
It was a topic of conversation for a short time.
Dan won't let it go.
Oh, I'm not letting it go. Yeah.
He just won't.
Unfortunately for him, the allegations about the nursing home death and the sexual harassment allegations kind of veered the story away from his alleged nipple rings onto more serious issues. So
Yeah.
I believe Governor Cuomo wishes they were talking about his nipple rings right now.
I'm sure.
Well, maybe he can write another book about
Sure.
Handling a
about
pandemic.
his fashion,
Such leadership.
fashion statements. All right, Bill Pepitone, where do people get more information about your candidacy? You might as well support a conservative retired cop in New York City running for mayor. We don't have any people running for mayor in this city, so get involved in New York. Where can people get more info about you?
Sure, they can go right to my website, Bill Pepitone for NYCmayor.com. More information is available on Facebook. I have a Facebook page, Bill Pepitone for NYC Mayor. Twitter, @Pepitone for NYC. We're posting every day, putting info out every day, my platform, my vision for New York City. We're all right there on the website. So I appreciate any support. And anybody that has any questions can reach out to me at any time.
Bill Pepitone, former New York City police officer, nephew of former Yankee great Joe Pepitone, and Republican candidate for mayor of New York City. Bill, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it. Good luck.
Thank you both. Appreciate it. Stay safe.
Thanks, you too. And he joined us on our turnkey Top Pro answer line.
The more you look